Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios. Alongside me,
Trace Trylko. Hello, everyone. Andrew, just as we predicted, UCF would use 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, nobody really thought of that. This is episode 51, by the way. Wow, what a night in Stanford, California. Palo Alto, wherever.
Yeah, not good.
No. Of course, Justin Holman goes out in the first series with a supposed, I don't know, it's not really technically been confirmed, a broken finger, it sounds like, though, on his throwing hand. It is quite possibly over for Justin Holman for the season.
Boy, and it threw UCF's game plan off big time.
Yeah, there's no game planning for that. There is no planning for that period. Of course, there was a little bit of planning, obviously. Bo Schneider comes in, has a lot of poise in there. Bo Schneider came in very unexpectedly, and all of a sudden is the starting quarterback in a Pac-12, game. How big is that? And he came in. I know a lot of people are really down on him, but that's unfair given the circumstances.
Down on him? Why? Because he came off the bench.
Yeah, he didn't have that great of a performance, but what do you expect? I mean, what do people really expect from that situation?
I think people that are down on him don't fully understand what was going on with him. As we will, we're going to talk to Kyle Israel, former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel, who breaks down the game. He's going to talk a little bit more about what that's like.
I think that he showed a lot of poise back there, a lot of balls, I'm going to say it. Not underinflated balls, but lots of balls back there. He stuck in there. I think really that was all we could ask for from him. He'll settle down. We'll see what we have next week against Furman. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? There's a lot of things that
I think we're going to see both
about.
Quarterbacks play when UCF returns to Bright House Network Stadium Saturday, 6 o'clock for that game against Furman. Coming up in the podcast, we also have Furman's Director of Sports Information, who will be joining us to break down the Paladins.
Yeah, so it couldn't come at a better time to play an FBS school. It's this is, of course, hard to talk about. This whole thing is hard to talk about. When we have two losses like this in a row, it doesn't make this easy for us to do.
What we should have done, though, is to record us for the first time ever watching a game together.
I know, that's weird, isn't it? That the first game that we actually watched.
And you pace, and you rant, and you rave, and you're on Twitter, and you're like these message board people. You melt down.
I don't melt down.
You melt down.
I don't melt down.
You were making quarterback changes in your mind throughout the game.
I thought we would see both quarterbacks in there, and I said that once Bo Schneider came in. I thought at some point we would see Tyler Harris as well. Tyler Harris did come in the fourth quarter, threw a touchdown, but he was playing against some reserves and everything else late in the game. Did throw the touchdown. If you look at the numbers, Bo Schneider, 7 of 19 for 46 yards. The longest being 14, 0 sacks. Tyler Harris, 7 of 15. Actually, Bo Schneider threw an interception as well. Tyler Harris,
horrible interception.
Yes, threw it right at the guy. But what do you expect for coming into your very first college game in such, a place against such a team? Really not such a team. They're horrible this year as well. I don't know.
That may be a bit strong. Horrible.
Oh, they're horrible. They're definitely horrible. They're going to have a tough time this year. They're nothing like anybody thought they were. We're nothing like anybody thought that we were. We thought we were reloading. We're definitely rebuilding.
I would say with the number of freshmen and sophomores that were playing into the first quarter
a few positives
for UCF,
yeah.
We are certainly now in rebuilding mode.
Definitely a few positives in the game. Taj McGowan had made his start as well. He looked pretty decent out there.
At times.
Behind an offensive line that is pretty bad. They're horrible.
Boy, you're sour on the Knights today.
I am.
You're a bit sour
well,
on the Knights.
I mean, after a performance like that, how could you not be?
We were never going to win that game, right?
I don't know about that. If Justin Holman was in there, we would have definitely had a better chance. At the end of the first quarter, it was 0-0.
This stings more because UCF lost the home opener to FIU. You win the home opener over FIU, and this was the game on the schedule
And at least
that
you're
people
1-1.
We would lose. But not to look ahead to Week 4 at South Carolina, but now South Carolina's lost its starting quarterback, right, due to injury, and so it's a long season. The UCF started out 0-2 last year, en route to winning back-to-back AAC titles.
And luckily, we haven't had to deal with something like this, especially with the injuries like we have this year in our second game.
It's just so funny to me that we were so worried about the secondary and so worried about the wide receivers. And
things change. That's the beauty about college football. It's different every week, and crazy things can happen, as we saw with Auburn and Jacksonville State. Really almost had that thing,
Arkansas upset by a MAC school, so things can happen. So what does the old ball coach, not Steve Spurrier, our old ball coach, Coach O'Leary, have to say?
We had to get those two young freshman quarterbacks ready to play, and I think we went in there and really did a decent job, but you got to be able to run the ball to help them out, not put them just in a throwing action all the time. And I thought the kids did a good job of getting the ball at times. Times they didn't. Times they made freshman mistakes. But overall, give credit to Stanford for changing things up, and putting some pressure on the quarterbacks when they need to do that. Your defense got to play well. I thought they played sporadically in the first half, and second half I was very displeased with just what we did, from a lack of tackling to a lack of pressure. And again, I think give credit to Stanford. I thought they made plays and they had to make them.
Well, thank you for that wonderful insight from George O'Leary.
One of the plays we didn't make that bugs me still, 4th and 9.
That's crazy.
Your redshirt freshman quarterback. How about throw him into that situation?
Yeah. That definitely, threw up some. This is 2 weeks in a row that we've had a questionable 4th down. Number one, that was way too far to be made as a field goal.
That's a chip shot.
Yeah.
It was in week 1.
Well, yeah. Obviously not. And then it's kind of in a weird spot to punt as well, because your punt has to be extremely, high and controlled in that spot. We talked with Kyle Israel later on about that, and we talk about how that was maybe a motivational thing, where if it would have worked out, it would have, given some motivation and been a high point.
Yeah, woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Well, I guess you have to try sometimes for those.
4th and 9?
Well,
4th and 9 after your starting quarterback goes out with an injury, changing the complexion of the game on the road in a 0-0 game?
Those guys are head football coaches for a reason. George O'Leary has the record that he has for a reason. That is not normally something that he would do. I guess we could dive into it. Was that Key's call? I think O'Leary has, the ability to put the veto on anything that Coach Key calls at any time.
Yes, Coach O'Leary knows a lot about football, 47-plus years in the game, and knows more than most of us fans. I get that. But we can be critical of questionable play calls, and especially when the head coach doesn't necessarily take accountability in his post-game comments or comments during the week on botched calls.
That's
like
true,
that.
And we'll see what comes out later on in the week. Hopefully people will be able to ask him some questions about that. I seriously doubt that that'll happen, but it's a difficult spot to sit here and analyze everything. Especially, there's been a couple times that I've been on here that I've almost, I wouldn't say suicidal, but
Let's hope not.
After UConn last year, there's been some difficult ones to swallow. This one is of course extremely difficult because of the Holman, thing. I don't want to. I guess we're going to have enough with Kyle here analyzing everything that I don't know how much more we really need to.
Well, let's talk about something, though, that you brought up frequently during the game when we were watching, was that you're questioning Jordan Akins being used on return coverage.
Yeah, I don't think that that's a good idea, personally. Number one, he's a big guy. He's not that fast. I just don't think that that's the right person to be back there. There are other people that are faster. You can use a corner. You can use anybody to return kicks. I don't think it should be your number one wide receiver. Number one, because of injury issues where he could, one kickoff or punt return and he's done. That's not good, number one. Number two, you need a smaller, more shifty guy back there that can, put little jukes on people, make people miss. He did do a couple that were all right, where the kicker took him out. 2 times the kicker had to take him out, which is great if you can get that far. But out of all the kick returns that he made and punt returns, 2 were notable for the distance that he traveled. The rest of them were not. He stepped out of bounds on one of them.
Oh, that was
at
horrible.
The one.
That was horrible.
Which he should have let that ball go.
Yeah.
He needs to learn that. We had issues with this before. This is not anything that's new. Even the great J.J. Warden had issues returning kicks and punts. Made some bad decisions a few times. That's going to happen. It's an interesting spot to be in. I did it in semi-pro, not in college, but it's not an easy position to play, kick returner, punt returner. But you have got to think a little bit more, when you're in that situation out there of what you're going to do. You need to think about it a little bit more. He, a lot of times, will just run it straight into the pile. And I think that's because he's not horribly shifty. I think we need somebody smaller and more shifty and faster back there, period.
See, you had a little bit more analysis in you, ready to throw out. And who also has a pretty good breakdown is our weekly guest, former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel.
Welcome to Inside the Huddle with former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel, brought to you by the Little Greek Fresh Grill. Fresh, flavorful, fabulous. Waterford Lakes, 855 North Althea Trail, Orlando.
Kyle, 4 quarterbacks used by UCF after Justin Holman goes down. Not what we wanted to see at Stanford.
No, very, very unfortunate. And first of all, thanks for having me back on the show this week. Really enjoyed doing the show last week, but definitely not the way I would want to address UCF football today. 4 quarterbacks, Justin Holman going down basically on the first play, first drive. And, it's hard to win a football game on the road in that type of environment without your go-to quarterback, your starting quarterback, really the leader of your team at this point in the season. And just put us behind the 8 ball early.
Where do we go from here? That's, I guess, the magic question.
Well, you're going to see a quarterback battle this week for sure. And you're going to see these 2 fairly highly recruited quarterbacks in Bo Schneider and Tyler Harris. Who's going to come out on top? I'm interested to see that this week. If there's anything that UCF fans can get excited about, if that's even a word that you want to use at this point in time, it's, all right, well, who's going to be the next guy in line? I think you saw 2 I think you saw 2 quarterbacks that have talent. They have arm talent. They're big pocket passers. Not going to be as elusive as a Blake Bortles was, but I think probably better arm talent than Blake this early in their career as far as just delivery and throwing the football. And you saw some bright spots out of both. But right now you're going to see who steps up and who's going to get an opportunity against the Division I AA opponent or FCS Bowl subdivision team in Furman on the 19th. That's going to give us an idea of who's going to be leading us for the next 4, 5, 6 weeks, depending on what comes back with Justin Holman's injury status.
Yeah, there's no secret that I'm a big Bo Schneider fan. I have been since day one, since the day they recruited him, even before he had signed his letter of intent. I was watching his stuff. He's an incredible player. I think that yesterday, he being thrown in as quickly as he wasn't prepared, and it showed. Do you think that?
Yeah.
Do you think that since they burned his red shirt, do you think that it would be? Do you think it's his team to take, or do you think that maybe since Tyler Harris came in at the end there and played a little bit better, actually, maybe against some Stanford backup guys, but he, moved the ball, he threw a touchdown pass versus the struggles that Bo Schneider had. Where do you think that goes? Who do you think gets the start? I know things can change in practice and all that.
Who would I start? I would probably start, I don't even know yet. I don't think that was if you're just going off base last night, I mean, who was in there when the game really mattered? It was Bo Schneider. Obviously, Coach O'Leary put him on the field, and he was the backup quarterback for a reason. I had heard that he looked strong throughout camp and into the first week last week as the backup, and Coach O'Leary doesn't just throw people out there. It's very thought out, and, there's a reason that Bo is the backup, and that's really what I look at. I think that he was in the game when it really mattered, when it was a 0-0 ball game, and he was leading us down the field. He had completed 4 passes in a row on one of those drives there. I believe it was in the second quarter, and we ended up having a little stand-back fumble that really ended that drive. But if we go down and score there at that point in the game, Bo would probably have a little bit of confidence. Our team would have a little bit of confidence, and that could have been a fairly different ball game offensively. And then Tyler Harris, I thought he played well when he came in. You got to remember that at that point when the game's out of hand, coverage is much more, it's a little bit more loose in regards to you have some backups in the game. Teams are just looking out to give up the big play. It's a little bit easier to complete passes. But like you said, Bo Schneider's red shirt is burned. I don't think that Coach O'Leary would ever determine who's going to be the starting quarterback for a game based on whether or not he burned somebody's red shirt. I lost my red shirt in 2005 playing 17 plays in a blowout against Southern Miss. Never saw the field again that season, and really kind of hurt me in not being able to play in 2008. So I don't think he's going to make a decision based on burning Bo Schneider's red shirt. He's going to see who performs the best in practice this week, and that's who's going to see the field for Furman.
Back to Justin Holman's injury. I hate to see it, but it's surprising that more players aren't hurt in the way in which he was. Talk about how, being where he was, that's something that can happen to a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my hand right now. I have scars all over my hand, my fingers, in between my fingers. I have 2 massive scars between my ring finger and my middle finger and my index finger and my middle finger. I mean, it's just part of the game. Now, it doesn't happen as much, and I think that one of the oddities in football is that these quarterbacks, are bringing their arms forwards, and a lot of times their hands are not hitting, hitting helmets, whether it's their offensive line, their running backs, the defensive linemen, or blitzing linebackers. It's one of those things that doesn't happen often. It's kind of a freak thing, and usually when it does happen, it's not something that's going to set a guy out for an entire game. All of mine were never a broken bone, but just stitches. So it was very unfortunate for it to happen that way. And, it's one of those things that you just can't really do anything about it. And I don't know the extent of the injury. I've tried to reach out to some people, but the team actually only got back like 2.5 or 3 hours ago from their trip. So it's definitely unfortunate. I feel really bad for Justin Holman because I'm sure that he was prepared and looking after kind of having the ball taken out of his hands at the end of the game versus FIU. He probably wanted to get out there and have a really good game, and that wasn't able to happen. But it's one of those things that happens at the position, not as often as one may think, but when it does and it knocks you out of the game, it surely can impact the team for sure.
A week ago on the Knightline podcast, you said you really thought UCF needed to rush for 150 yards to have a chance to beat Stanford. That didn't happen, but we did see an emergence of Taj McGowan. Talk about him and what you saw from the offensive line this week.
Well, Taj was a guy, I wish I had known this when we did the podcast last week. I found out probably midweek that he was going to be the starter for us, or at least get a majority of the playing time. And I saw a guy that has some elusiveness, has some vision. I think with a couple more games under the belt, he probably breaks 1 or 2 of those for long runs. Where he would have broken those tackles. And I think he's a guy that we're maybe looking for from a playmaker. When I was talking about last week, we've kind of missed out on recruiting. Well, maybe I'm wrong, and Taj McGowan is that guy. He just needs the opportunity to show us that. If you look at our skill players right now offensively, you have a true freshman or redshirt freshman in Taj McGowan. You have Trylko Smith, and then one of the either Bo Schneider or Tyler Harris. The guys that are going to be making plays for us are really young. So I think for the future of UCF football, it's bright, but it's going to make it that much more difficult this season. But I think Taj is a guy that I can be excited about. I think our fan base should be excited about. But again, with losing, we really only rushed for 76 yards. I think we had 48 yards in sacks, or 43 yards in sacks, which brought that total down again. But under 100 yards rushing wasn't going to get it done against Stanford. I said that last week, and there was just no way we could win that football game without getting over that 150-yard mark.
Speaking more about the running backs, William Stanback had problems again in this game. Didn't start, of course. Came out, didn't do much, to be honest with you. Had 2 runs for positive gain of 5 yards and the fumble, which was one of the biggest things. We already suspected that he was in the doghouse, number one, or something's going on there. Where does he go from here? And honestly, I think a lot of us are thinking that he's kind of not what we thought he was. He's maybe even as far as going a kind of a guy that's a bust. What do you think about that?
I never like to call a guy a bust, honestly, but I don't think he deserves that. He works really hard. When you think of the expectations, maybe your expectations are too high for him. You look at the season that he had success in. You had Blake Bortles, you had Storm Johnson. He was kind of the you had really 5 or 6 good receivers that were opening up the running game. So he had the ability to run in an offense that was basically catering to him when he was in the ball game. So that's different when everybody's stacking the box and you have a struggling offensive line in front of you. It's almost like he's in his own head. And reports came out from practice this week that coach wasn't very happy with him throughout the course of the week. And I don't really know, and I can't really comment any further on that. But I think our expectation levels was extremely high for Will. For one reason or another, he's having some difficulty meeting those and, just really being productive at all on any level. And I wish that I could sit in the film room and break down film, look at the offensive line, play calling type of adjustments we're seeing at the line of scrimmage. But it's going to be difficult to run the football if you have a young quarterback in there that doesn't understand all the audibles at the line of scrimmage or get us into the right plays. And they may have a fairly good level of knowledge about audibles and those type of things, but you're certainly not going to have the entire package that you would have with Justin Holman in there, and that puts more pressure on the running back because you're running into defensive fronts that maybe aren't as advantageous if you had a veteran quarterback who can check you into some better plays. So it all kind of, the injury with Justin, everything kind of goes downhill from there when you look at the entire offense. But, we'll see what Todd Gallen can do it for us and see where Dontravius Wilson is here in the next couple of weeks.
So Justin Holman goes out first quarter, Bo Schneider in, and then towards the end of the quarter, UCF goes for it on a 4th and 9, and I'm shaking my head. What was your thought on putting him in that position?
Desperation was my thought, coming from somebody, who's generally conservative and likes to play field position. And, I didn't, outside of the decision to do that with Bo Schneider in there, even if Justin Holman was in there, I would have said, hey, this is a close ball game right now. Let's play the field position. That's what I would assume Coach Leary would have done in the past. But I think it was a tough situation for Bo. But he was probably trying to see what, if we complete that and convert that on 4th and 9, that's a huge motivational booster for the offense and for Bo Schneider. And so you can look at it both ways. I think that the risk probably outweighed the reward in that situation, but it would have been fantastic to convert there and give Bo a little bit of confidence moving forward. But it was definitely one that I think that Coach would potentially like to have back.
That was a weird spot on the ball. I mean, number one, it's too far for a field goal. It's too short, really, for a punt because Caleb Houston was hammering him last night. He actually, as far as I'm concerned, was the player of the game. Unfortunately, when you have to have your punter as the player of the game, that's a bad situation. But in the circumstances, I guess, like you said, motivational probably was what they were thinking, and I can understand that now that you say that.
Yeah, and it's it is one of those weird spots on the field for sure. You're on the road; it's a non-conference game. You're playing Stanford, who at some point in the game is going to put up some points. They do have athletes, as we saw there, certainly in the second half. And I don't think it was a bad call by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that it was maybe one he'd like to have back. But it is what it is in that type of ball game. Now, if that was a conference game and the conference championship was on the line, or anything along those lines, then there may have been a different decision made there, but when there's nothing really riding on the game, you have a backup quarterback in who's a true freshman, you tend to gamble a little bit more, and I can respect that.
Final score in this game, 31-7, but I really feel like the defense stepped up its performance from the FIU game. What's your take on the D?
Yeah, I really think that our defense played a whole lot better. Really, I was really pleased with them in the first half. You saw a lot more tighter coverage. You saw guys making plays at the ball in the air. I think we pursued pretty well defensively on the backside and stretched some plays out and allowed our linebackers to make some plays. I was very pleased, certainly in the first half, with the way the defense played. I think when you keep them on the field that much and you're not doing anything offensively and you're not putting any points up, that has somewhat of a impact on your defense, and then it wears them down. And Stanford has a very good coaching staff, and I don't think that some of those plays were missed tackles, but the first touchdown that they scored, I think that was a great play call, kind of a play action, almost like a semi-trick play with getting that guy across the field, and it was just a great play call at a great time, and that was just flat-out great coaching right there by the Stanford coaching staff. In the second half, I mean, we missed some tackles, and I think we got tired, and I don't know if the effort was there as much as Coach would have wanted it to, but I would be very pleased with the way that we played in the first half on the road. I think it's a game that we can build off of. Obviously, you wear down in the second half, and that's going to happen. The thing that UCF fans never really see is we don't ever really get blown out. So that makes it a little bit harder to swallow. But, you can take some positives away from this game, certainly from our defense.
Yeah, the defense was on the field for a long time. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but there were definitely guys that stepped up on the defensive side. We saw some good things and some bad things both from Shaquille Griffin. There was not a lot of safety play as far as, especially on that one long touchdown for Stanford. Shaquille got burned off the line, but I didn't see the safeties step up in there.
Yeah, the safeties did step up in there. That was actually the problem. They stepped up on the play fake, and Shaquille had outside leverage. And I think that was probably a play that they had been showing where they ran the ball against Northwestern, and then they popped one on us. Shaquille outside leverage, no safety help over the middle. I mean, you can't really blame the quarterback or Shaquille Griffin there if he's being coached, for that particular formation to take outside leverage. It was a good design call by Stanford for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shaquille, though, really showed some brilliance, especially in the first few series. He had a couple pass breakups there and just, really was sticking with the receivers. There was another one, it was on the other side of the field, where the Stanford guy ran all the way down to the end zone, but Shaquille, stayed in there with him, and, the guy was a really, really fast guy. So there are some things there very positive for Shaquille Griffin especially. Trylko Johnson also did really well. 6 solo tackles, 2 assists, and he led with 8. I think there's definitely some positives to take from this game.
Certainly, both those guys are guys that I think we're going to lean on moving forward, guys that are going to make plays for us. And one thing that UCF has really always had over the years, even since really back to 2004 with Asante Samuel, and the trend has started for us to have a really good, strong defensive backfield. And that's been one of the things that's made us so successful over the years. You think of all the guys we've had, Joe Burnett, Josh Robinson, Jason Vincent, Sharif Rashad, Kamal Ishmael. We've had really strong defensive backfields, and I think Shaquille and Trylko and DJ Killings, if he's able to make it back on there, I know he didn't make the trip this week for whatever reason. Those guys, if they can hold down the defensive backfield for us, I think that plays into what Coach O'Leary likes defensively and really putting pressure up on being able to put pressure with the front seven and having lockdown defensive backs back there. So it's a really good sign to see that from our DBs.
So based on your experience as a UCF quarterback, tell fans, what would you expect the team to be doing this week in team meetings and in practice, considering the fallout of the Holman injury? What will the week of practice leading up to Furman be like?
Intense, extremely intense. And it's going to be one of those things where everybody's really on their toes, I believe. And, Coach isn't going to back off because we've had 2 losses. I mean, he's going to keep pushing this team. I think we saw improvement from week 1 to week 2, certainly. And I know that he pushed them hard last week. And it's going to be one of those things where everybody, you kind of understand the program has been established. I think Coach O'Leary's been here 12 years now. Coming off a loss, practice is always the same. It's intense. It's physical, and you got to put your quarterbacks, your 2 young quarterbacks, in situations in practice that are going to be able to make the game easier for them. That's always the thing that Coach O'Leary and UCF has done, is made practice extremely, extremely difficult, and the games always tend to be a little bit easier, whether you're winning or losing, than what practice is. And I think that he's going to try to put Tyler Harris and Bo Schneider, in some uncomfortable situations in practice, bringing pressure, because they did see a lot of pressure in the second half. I'm sure Furman's going to try to do the same thing if they feel like they can match up with our wide receivers. And it's going to be a week of maybe not too fun physical football. And that's how it's going to be. And that's how I would expect it to be. And if I was out there being a coach, that's how it would be for me too, because this team, we can't just fold it and go in the tank because Justin Holman got hurt. We need to have some resiliency. We need to understand that this program has been successful for a number of years now, and that's because of the type of work ethic we have. That's the type of work ethic we put in the weight room in the summers. And that mindset needs to continue even when you're struggling in a season. And I really, really would love to see that happen with our front five on the offensive line. I mean, we just had some tackle issues, right tackle, left tackle. The toughness and the mentality and all those things need to really come to another level for our offensive line. If we're ever going to have success this season offensively, our offensive line is going to have to just flat out step up. And for me, you know, that's where I look to see hopefully the most success next week, because when you're playing against the FBS Bowl subdivision team, FCS, you know, you want to dominate the line of scrimmage, and we have to get started at some point doing that, because the next game we're going to play is on the road in Columbia in an extremely hostile environment that I've played in. You're not going to be able to hear anything. You're going to have a young freshman quarterback behind center, and the offensive line is just play extremely well and communicate well. So this needs to be a huge, crucial week for our offensive line and communication, really understanding what we're doing, because, yes, we need to be focused on Furman, but we need to get some momentum going so that we go up to Columbia. It's not just a route, and we're not in the ballgame.
Well, luckily, we have a game against Furman, as we've talked a little bit about already. That gives a little bit of a chance for these players, hopefully, to get their feet under them. It comes at a perfect time, especially now because of this injury. It's a little bit better for the freshman quarterbacks to go out and play against a team like Furman that is a little bit of a lower level. But you saw this last week how those FBS teams can sometimes be a surprise, you know, and these can be trap games. So everybody really has to concentrate this week. And like you said, the offensive line really needs to step up. We said that all year last year, and we're still saying it now. So hopefully something good can happen. I don't even really know what to say. I'm kind of at a loss for words from this week's game. So
I can certainly understand that, and you don't want to overlook any opponent at all. And I think that the one, you know, Coach O'Leary always breaks it down. You hear it 100 times. You listen to his interviews, 12 one-game seasons, and this is where that type of mentality is crucial. We really need to focus on Furman. We really need to focus on getting better this week, and you can't go out there and expect to walk over a Furman. I mean, Jackson State, in my opinion, should have beat Auburn at Auburn this weekend. You know, Toledo beat Arkansas on the road. You just can't go out and flat out. We're not good enough to go and look past Furman, and that's my true opinion. We're just flat out not good enough to do that, and no team should ever do that. But certainly, this is a week where we have to be focused and we have to gel as a unit. And I think defensively we did some good things that allow them to gain confidence. And offensively, you know, I'm really interested to see who comes out at the start of this week. I mean, if you're not going to be excited about how the season's going as a fan for UCF, then get a little bit excited about seeing who's going to step up out of Bo Schneider and Tyler Harris, because one of those guys is going to be generals for us moving forward, you know, in the years to come once Justin Holman is his time's over here.
So UCF started last season 0-2. And then won 9 of 10 en route to back-to-back AAC titles. That remains the goal for this team.
You know, it does remain the goal, and it should be the goal. But right now, I mean, with the type of losses that we've had, you really just got to be focused on next week. And I know it's probably, you know, annoying for me to say that, but it's just the truth. It's how it has to be. You can't look beyond Furman. But we have come back from this type of record in the past. Has it been these two type of losses? Not sure that it has. But it's just one of those things where you got to focus on Furman and see what we can make happen. And if you look around the country, guys, and what the American Athletic Conference is doing, there are some talented football teams in the American. I mean, Houston goes and beats Louisville. Cincinnati's no rollover. You know, there's a lot of teams playing. East Carolina gives Florida a run at home in the swamp. It's going to be a tough conference season this year for us, and we have to do everything we can in the next 2 games to get ready for that. So there's a lot of football to be played still, and these conference games are going to be really, really big. And I don't know what ramifications this season has on the Big 12. The higher-ups in our program, Dr. Hitt, Coach O'Leary, I'm sure they know what we're playing for, if anything, as far as the conference realignment is concerned. But for the fan base, I hope that we can put out, you know, we can have some success this year, because it is scary to think that there's potential of that realignment happening, and it would be just so devastating to be left out of that. I don't know if TV markets and location and being in the state of Florida outweighs one season that may not be a championship caliber season for us. Maybe those things are still more of the business side of things that are more important for that realignment. However, you don't want to just completely crap the bed for 2015, for lack of a better term. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
When it comes to a record.
Last year we started out with the exact same record going into week 3. And we came out with a share of the American Athletic Championship. We've been here before. We haven't been here really in the last few years with injuries like this, especially to our starting quarterback. But I think that we will overcome. All is not lost. The fans need to remember that. There's a lot left of football to play, and there's a lot of good things that can happen, especially with these freshman quarterbacks. Somebody's going to step up. Who knows? Next year we may have a quarterback controversy when this is all done. I hope not, but it's a very distinct possibility. Thank you for joining us again, of course. We love having you on here. We had such great comments last week. Tell us a little bit about the little Greek.
Little Greek right over here in the northwest corner of Waterford Lake Shopping Center. We are, like I said last week, we're in the category of Chipotle, Phegley, Noodles and Company, fast casual, made to order. We restock our fresh vegetables twice a day. Everything is prepped in-house. It's just about as fresh as you can get. And we have really, really strong, good price points. You can get a Euro. You can walk out of here with a Euro pita for $6.49. A large Greek salad for $6.49. So we're very affordable, and this is the first store of 18 to 20 that we're going to be doing here in Central Florida. So if you know anybody that's looking for franchising opportunities or looking to invest in a franchise, you can do one at a time. We're not like Chipotle or like Starbucks where you have to purchase 3 or 4 at a time. You can do one. So anybody that's looking for those type of opportunities, please reach out to me and come check us out.
Well, I'm hoping to do that next week, actually. Hoping to make it out there this next week and have some of that awesome, fresh Greek food. Thank you so much. Hopefully next week we're going to talk about a win, maybe have a little bit better of a game in general. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you being on here. Have a good week.
Thanks, guys. I'm enjoying it quite a bit, and I look forward to talking to you all next Sunday.
So you travel a lot for work and fun. Have you ever thought about having just a little bit more insurance? TravelX gives you the peace of mind so you can take care of your family and loved ones. Click the link on our webpage. I'm just saying, accidents happen.
This is Bo Schneider, and I'm listening to UCF Knightline.
That's very good for Bo Schneider to be listening to the Knightline podcast, as more and more people are, Andrew. And no doubt UCF students staying up very late to watch that Stanford game because Grubhub, a food delivery company, lists UCF as the fourth-ranked college with the most caffeine consumption.
Well, these people have a lot of time on their hands to research.
The study
things
analyzed
like this.
delivery orders to more than 100 colleges around the nation of coffee and energy drinks. This in the Central Florida future. And, we may not have beaten Stanford on the field Saturday. However, UCF tied as the 13th most innovative school along with Georgia Tech, University of Southern California, and Stanford also in that list among most innovative universities in the country. So we're in good company if we're not exactly world beaters on the field.
You know what? We have a question from one of our listeners today. That's awesome.
There you go.
Scott from Greenville, Indiana. No, I'm joking. Scott.
With this request and dedication.
Yeah, Scott writes in, so an 0-2 start is leaving serious questions about the play calling at this point. I understand we threw 2 inexperienced quarterbacks in the mix last night after Holman left the game, but why not let the kid with the big arms show it off a bit? I watched Snyder run mostly uncreative and uber-conservative offense. I know it's a road game in a hostile environment, but with no rushing game, less than 100 total rushing yards in 2 games, if you take the 43 yards Tyler Harris lost by sacks or tackles for losses, let's show off the wide receivers. Do you think that we can be that conservative and beat the Gamecocks in 2 weeks or Furman this week? Thank you for your question, Scott. You can leave us questions on our website and by phone, 407-205-7427. 407-205-7427. So, Scott, the answer to your question is no. We cannot.
No.
We cannot be that conservative, and I don't think that we will be that conservative. I think that during the week this week, they're going to simplify this offense for whoever the starter is at quarterback, whether it's Bo Schneider, I think it technically should be, or Tyler Harris. They're going to make it easier for those guys. I don't think that they probably game planned for Bo Schneider to come in 2 series into the game. If he was going to come in at all, it was going to be mop-up duty in the fourth quarter. I don't think it's going to be as conservative. No, we can't beat them if we are as conservative. We may be able to beat Furman being conservative. I don't think it's going to be time for it to be conservative, though. Against a team like that, we need to air it out. We need to show what we got. We need to try some things. It's the perfect time.
By the way, UCF's going to have to go 10-0 to match your preseason prediction of just 2 weeks ago of 10-2. And boy, you talk about 2 weeks. AAC, several teams a lot better than perhaps the pundits expected. The American now 3-6 with UCF's late loss against Power 5 teams this season. How about some teams that are really making noise? Houston beats Louisville on the road to move to 2-0. Memphis, should I mention that one? Memphis beats your Kansas Jayhawks big, 55-23.
Rebuilding the program.
And Temple moved to 2-0. Impressive win at Cincinnati. That's a big win for Temple. So couple of several 2-0 teams in the league, and
I think that
they look good.
I think that we said in the beginning, before any of this started, that Temple was going to be a really good team this year.
You called that one.
I don't know if I totally believed it, but and we'll see what happens, down the line. But they're impressive, for sure. Other winners: Tulsa over New Mexico, 40-21. SMU 31-13 over North Texas. UConn beats Army 22-19. Some losses for the American: FSU over South Florida, 34-14. Florida over East Carolina, 31-24. And Georgia Tech put a whipping on Tulane, 65-10.
Yeah, Tulane's not very good. Next week's chances for wins over P5 schools: South Florida travels to Maryland, UConn's at Mizzou, Tulsa travels to Oklahoma, SMU's at TCU. What that all means is that the Cows may be the Americans' best chance of getting a win over a Power 5 school.
I think that we should put this whole thing to bed right here. We're done talking about the Stanford loss. We're done talking about it. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about Furman coming up here. Hunter Reed, who is the sports information director for Furman University football. Here's our interview.
A week ago, we said it was a battle of 0-1 teams with UCF facing Stanford. This week, it's a battle of 0-2 teams as Furman comes to UCF for a Saturday night game at the Bright House. Furman is coming off a 42-3 loss at Virginia Tech. Joining us now is Hunter Reed, Furman's Associate Athletics Director for Sports Information. Thanks for joining us, Hunter.
Guys, glad to be with you.
If folks are not familiar with Furman, it's located in Greenville, South Carolina. It's the state's oldest private institution with notable alumni including soccer player Clint Dempsey and singer Amy Grant. Please tell us a little bit more about Furman.
Well, Furman's been in existence since 1826, so it's a pretty old school, and I've been playing football since 1889. We've been playing football longer than Clemson and South Carolina in this state. So we're our 110th season overall, and I've had a lot of success the last 35, 40 years. And in particular, as members of the Southern Conference, we play at the FCS level, and we were the first private school in FCS to win a national championship in 1988, and a very proud tradition here at Furman. We've won 13 Southern Conference championships over the years, and had some very successful teams, good coaches. Dick Sheridan, of course, was architect of a lot of that early success, later coached at NC State, and Bobby Johnson, who later coached at Vanderbilt, left Furman to go to Vanderbilt after the 2001 season. So we've had some successful coaches and players come through our program over the years.
Yeah, that's quite the historical resume. Over the weekend, though, tough one for the Paladins against a talented Vatech team. What happened against the Hokies?
Oh, we were just overwhelmed by Virginia Tech's defense. We really could not pass block those guys. They're well known for their swarming pass rush. I think they lead the, as they say, the Power 5 in total sacks over like the last 15 to 20 years. They have a statistic that they chart, and they're number one by a long shot in terms of sack. They certainly ramped up the pressure on us. We tried a lot of play action early, and they just didn't bite on the play action. Just man covered us, wide receivers, and just got all over our quarterback early. We had some success running the football. I think in retrospect, if our coaches could do it again, we'd probably run the football a little bit more and run right at them a little bit and do some more sprint outs. But the story of the game yesterday was Virginia Tech's defense. They just really bottled us up. We managed about 250 yards on them, which is not awful. We had a little success, like I said, running the football, but we just could not extend drives, move the chains on a consistent basis against those guys.
Well, a week earlier, Furman was edged by Coastal Carolina 38-35 with quarterback Reese Hannon throwing for 365 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tell us about the scoring threats on Furman's offense.
Well, Reese is a redshirt junior quarterback, has been elected our team captain, believe it or not, 3 times already, and that includes once last year when he was a true junior. And like you guys were referring to, and I just spoke to you earlier, that he broke his ankle and fractured tibia in the season opener of last year's game, and we lost him for the season. So he redshirted and has come back this year as a redshirt junior and has the respect of his teammates and coaches as well to be elected already 3 times in our program history. So he's a good field general. He has a good command of the offense, not greatly mobile, although he's run a little bit more this year already than he has in the past, but really knows how to get us into the right play and run the offense pretty steady. He'll stand in the pocket and take some hits, but he's a proven field general. He's thrown for about 3,500 yards already in his career, so he's a good one and a veteran leader. Started 24 games for us now over the course of his career. And, glad to have him back this year because last year when we didn't have him, we really struggled.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you thought perhaps the running game should have gone at Virginia Tech a little bit more. Talk about your running backs, also your wide receivers. Who should UCF fans be keeping an eye on?
Well, the first 2 games, we primarily run the 2 guys at tailback, as we call Antonio Wilcox is a true sophomore, and Tristan Luke is a true freshman who ran for about 80 yards against Virginia Tech yesterday. I've been very impressed with him. He is really, he only goes about 5'7", but he's about 195 pounds, a lot of lower body strength, hard to get to his legs and so forth. So he's run with some authority. Antonio Wilcox, it will probably be our starting tailback. He's proven to be effective catching the ball out of the backfield. He caught 7 passes in the season opener against Coastal Carolina. And as far as our wide receivers go, they were pretty much bottled up yesterday by Virginia Tech's very fine secondary, but we've got a nice group of veteran receivers. Jordan Snelling, a senior, is our leader, and Andre Suttles, a junior, will also start beside him. We'll run some trips as well with Logan McCarter, a sophomore. Those are probably our top 3 receivers. Now, tight end, our preseason All-America tight end, Duncan Fletcher, has been really slowed with hamstring issues. He missed virtually the entire preseason. Has played very sparingly the first 2 games. That's a big loss for us because he caught 36 passes for us last year. So he's been a little very limited so far. So we're giving up a little bit at that position, which we're really counting on to be a strength this year, and may very well be, but so far it has not been. But offensive line is a nice veteran group coming back. We weren't particularly strong there last year, but we have prospects of being a little bit better there this year. Joe Turner, our senior all-conference guard, is our leader there.
Furman gave up 38 points in week 1 and nearly 500 yards of offense, and then followed that up by giving 42 points and 583 yards to Virginia Tech. What's it going to take for the defense to step up and stop some of that?
Well, first of all, Coastal Carolina is in our division, FCS. It's the number 1 ranked team. They have a very solid, very strong senior quarterback. Alex Ross, who lit us up pretty good in the opener. He's lit up about everybody he's played, to be perfectly honest. So no real shame there. He's thrown for a lot of yards against everybody he's faced. So we actually played a little bit better defensively as far as pass goes, particularly for about 3 quarters yesterday. We had a couple starters get banged up and did not play most of the fourth quarter, and Virginia Tech exploited us late there. But I think the thing that we've got to improve on that I've seen is we've not really shown much of a pass rush. We only have 1 sack in 2 games, and we really didn't come close yesterday to getting the Virginia Tech quarterbacks that they trotted out there. We didn't really put a lot of pressure on them. And that, in turn, when you don't put any pressure on the quarterback, they really hang your secondary out to dry, and that was exposed yesterday. But we've got a nice group. I think we're going to be pretty decent against the run. We've got two good linebackers in Corey Magwood and Carl Ryder, a senior and junior respectively. And I think, obviously, when you're not facing Virginia Tech every week, I think prospect of improving statistically is there, although I'm sure Central Florida will be, obviously, it's another solid test for us. This is a pretty brutal first three games for us, to be perfectly honest. I doubt anybody in the FCS is playing the competition that we're playing the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. A respected non-con schedule. Talk about how you think Furman will stack up in your conference play this year.
Well, we were preseason number 5. Like I said, we're coming off a very disappointing year last year. We were only 3-9 a year ago, but we were absolutely blown out with the injuries a year ago like I've never seen. I'm in my 31st year here at Furman, and it was unbelievable. We like I mentioned earlier, we lost Reese Hannon, our starting quarterback, in the third quarter of the season opener. Carl Ryder, who all-conference linebacker 2 years ago, led the league in tackles, 136 tackles in 2013. He played 3 plays last year and was done for the year with a torn labrum. And it just continued throughout the year. We had guys breaking arms, breaking legs, ACLs. And then as a consequence, the silver lining to that, guys, is all those injuries last year afforded a lot of guys some playing time, probably a little bit earlier than the master plan. So we have 36 guys coming back this year who have started games. I don't ever remember that many players in any year that they could say they started games in their careers. But that's the silver lining of having an injury blowout season like we had a year ago. And I think we're going to be okay at FCS. I really do. I think, we played Coastal Carolina toe-to-toe right to the end, losing by 3, 38-35 in the opener. I think you just kind of got to wash your hands as far as our perspective is concerned with Virginia Tech. It is what it is. I mean, it was 14-0 at half, and it's a lot of. You see a lot of times the FCS teams struggle in the second half against the Power 5 teams. It's just the depth issue really comes to the fore, and they do some things right and take it to the house, so to speak, and that's what happened yesterday. But I think we'll be fine. I really do. Like I said, I just think this early season schedule is nothing like we've ever played before, and we just got to manage to survive and compete and try to get better.
Well, we look forward to welcoming your team to Bright House Network Stadium on Saturday night. Any kind of a prediction or anything that you'd like to see happen for your team on Saturday night?
Well, obviously, we want to play better than we did this past Saturday. Central Florida will be certainly a nice test. Of course, I'll take the result of the first meeting between Furman and Central Florida. The only meeting in 1984, I think Furman won 42-6. And here in Greenville, when UCF was playing in the FCS level. Matter of fact, I witnessed UCF's first football team. I believe it was 81. I was a student at Little Presbyterian College right down the road here, and PC was fortunate enough to beat UCF 48-0 in that game. But then the next year we played in the old Tangerine Bowl there at PC won 3-0, and I think the folks at PC realized it'd be a good time to stop the series right there because obviously UCF was ascendant at that point, and obviously just moved right on up and is very, very well moving up to FBS and obviously has an established program now.
Yeah, things have definitely changed since then. I hope that that is not the result this next week. So, hey, thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your Sunday. We really appreciate it.
Guys, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you all Saturday.
All righty, thank you. We'll see you then. All right, I guess now it should be time for us to make our predictions for the UCF Furman game happening on Saturday night at 6 p.m.
I'd say I was pretty good on mine for last week. I had Stanford.
We're not talking about last week
anymore. Stanford 33-13 is what
we're not talking about last week anymore.
There's a moratorium.
I've stopped that.
Got it.
Put an end to it.
Got it. Got the memo.
Kibosh on it.
Kibosh.
All right. So I'm going to say 21-7.
Well, you just don't believe in a lot of offense, do you?
Well, given the situation.
Hey, kibosh.
No.
33-12. That's what I'm going with. 33-12.
12?
12. Why not 12?
12's kind of a weird number.
Yes, it is.
There's going to be a safety involved?
That's 4 field goals.
Okay.
That's what they're getting.
All right,
That's
well,
4 field goals. Believe it or not, at 0-2, the UCF still in the bowl picture Some of the revised bowl watch has CBS Sports has UCF and Air Force in the Armed Forces Bowl. A little closer to home, the Boca Raton Bowl, UCF and Western Michigan. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, well,
make your holiday plans now.
Yeah.
It's December 22 in Boca Raton.
Things definitely change. What else do we got here?
Well, it's the opening week of the NFL season. Of course, we're recording during these early games, so we won't have a complete breakdown of how our UCF guys are doing. But
we got lots of guys out there, and we wish them well, and please stay injury-free and get it done. Built by UCF, hashtag, right? All right. Now, news and notes. And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports.
Wrong side of the scoreboard for the UCF women's soccer team. 4-0 losers at number 3 Florida State. Better news, though. For the second week in a row, a member of the UCF women's soccer team has been named the American Offensive Player of the Week. Junior Carol Rodriguez earned the honor after she netted 3 goals and an assist against Ole Miss and Oklahoma State. Next up, home versus Georgetown Friday at 5:30.
Tough weekend for UCF volleyball on the losing end to Minnesota, UC Irvine, and North Dakota State in a weekend tourney in Minneapolis. Better news, an MVP performance at the Omaha Classic led Kaya Bright to American Offensive Player of the Week honors. Next up, the non-conference slate winds down with a tourney in South Florida with games against Seattle, FIU, and Miami.
For the week for the UCF men's soccer team. 2-0 loss at home to Mercer. 2-1 overtime loss at North Florida. Drops the men to 1-2 on the young season. Next up, the men play Northwestern at Toyota Park, home of the MLS's Chicago Fire. That's Monday night before returning home Friday night versus Grand Canyon at 8 p.m.
Head coach Bobby Cashman announced the men's tennis team will play 6 of its 7 fall events in the state of Florida.
UCF cross country finished second in its own UCF Invitational, second to the Cows from Tampa. Next up Saturday, the Knights are in Gainesville for the Mountain Dew Invitational.
Lots of caffeine there. UCF women's golf got underway Saturday with a tournament that runs through Monday in Charleston, South Carolina, and the men's golf continues playing in the Northern Intercollegiate in Illinois. Well, that's going to do it for us. This has been episode number 51. I'm Andrew Phegley.
I'm Trace Trylko. Go Knights!
Charge on and have a better week. This week will be a lot better.
UCF, let's go Knights! UCF, charge on to the field. With our spirits, we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our cry. BSCTO, tonight.